This is a real place in the Netherlands, and this is a digital copy I made using a technique called Gaussian Splatting. Let me show you how you can do the same for your projects. I do a lot of 3D work, especially photogrammetry, and one thing that always bothers me is that it's almost never as good as the real thing. It lacks details, and especially translucency and transparency are almost impossible to capture. Which is why I really wanted to try out Gaussian Splatting. A quick little insert: even I, as a 3D artist, was shocked beyond my beliefs how insane the result at the end of the video is. But what actually is Gaussian Splatting? You take pictures of every angle of the object, but in contrast to photo scanning, where you would calculate a model, instead you calculate these ellipsoids which make up the whole scene. They are partially translucent or transparent and create the whole scene. Even reflections as well as translucent parts of the objects get recreated perfectly. So when taking the images themselves, you really want to take care of a few things. First of all, try to keep the shutter speed as low as possible because you don't want motion blur. Also, the exposure in the images should be the same in all images. If you have light changes, that will create artifacts. This goes for the camera settings themselves, but also for the conditions you shoot in. So if you shoot in overcast weather, it's best because the light isn't as harsh and you won't have strong changes when the clouds move in front of the sun. Besides that, the white balance should also be set to manual. Again, you don't want changes throughout the images. Then you just walk around the object in circles and take pictures from different heights. I suggest you take pictures from at least 3 different heights to get as much information as possible. And for bigger scenes, I use the drone to get overhead shots from every angle so that the software has information from every side of the object to work with. Preparation is arguably the most important part here, because if you have a good image set, then the model will most likely turn out great, and if your image set has a lot of bad images in it, then the model will most likely turn out really bad. If you don't have an expensive camera, you can do the same thing with your iPhone, but try to use an app where you can set the camera settings manually. Again, you want everything as consistent as possible. In the Netherlands, with the beach huts, I did 2 Gaussian Splats. First, I had my shadow in the image a few times, which created dark artifacts in the final Gaussian Splat, so try to avoid having your own shadow in the images. Then, try to keep the object as consistent as possible as well. I had a lot of footsteps on the ground, which weren't there in the first images because I just walked the first cycles and created the footsteps myself, so the ground wasn't consistent. Then I did the second one, which went already a lot better. The first few rounds I did with a drone. I flew about 3 or 4 circles around the main hut. Then I did the same thing with a camera on the ground level as well as on the first floor of the beach hut to get as much details as possible, some close-up shots, and later I brought everything together. For the drone, I did videos, which I then just extracted JPEGs from, because I have a quite old drone model that doesn't support pre-planning the routes, so I had to fly manually, for which filming is just a lot easier. Now that you're done with shooting, you have the biggest part behind you. Now you want to extract all the images from the videos you took and match them as closely as possible. After that, you calculate the image positions and then you can start the training. For matching the images, I used a custom script created with Claude. I first extracted the white balance from both of them, and then I matched the drone white balance to the camera white balance. Then I used Brush. It's an open source tool to train the Gaussian Splats. There's also another option which is called Postshot. It seems to be the industry standard right now, but it costs money and it's one of those subscription models. Today we're actually going to try Postshot for the model we're going to create, and that way I can show you both results and compare which one was easier and which one was better to work with. After you train your model, you usually want to do a cleanup phase. Even with the best dataset, you usually get some floaters, which are ellipsoids where you don't want them. You can use SuperSplat for that. It's a free browser tool. You just drag and drop in your Gaussian Splat, and there's a bunch of tools to get rid of floaters, to trim the scene to only the parts you really want, and then export everything back out. Postshot has a cleanup tool too, but SuperSplat gives you more control, the results were cleaner, and it's free, so that's what I use. Once you're done cleaning your Gaussian Splat, you can start rendering. And here the real benefit of Gaussian Splats comes into play, because they can render in real time. I decided to scan this shoe, all the detail as well as all the reflections of the leather. I use this camera. It's a Sony A7R IV with 61 megapixels. I have a 24mm Sigma lens. If you want a better lens, you should probably go with something like 35 millimeters or maybe 50 millimeters, because then you will get less distortion. Oh, and what I forgot to mention earlier, you really want as much in focus as possible. So you really want to close down that aperture to get as much detail as possible. I would suggest to shoot at f8 to f13. For the shoot, I use a simple LED panel and the shoe on a little tripod, so it's up in the air and we can photograph from below and above. What we want to focus on now is getting circles below the shoe, at the height of the shoe and above the shoe, so we get every angle. And the most important thing is that all the images are pretty consistent in terms of focus and light intensity and white balance. I set the white balance using this color checker, but you can also just do it using anything else that is white, and then you can start shooting. While shooting, you want to actually move the camera instead of just angling it. Once you have all your images, we're gonna start aligning them in RealityScan. It's free to use and it works great with all the applications like Brush or Postshot. You can just drag and drop all your images in here and then press Align Images. This will start the process of aligning all of them and figuring out their camera positions. Once everything is aligned, you'll see this point cloud of the shoe. If the alignment didn't work correctly, that's a good indicator that you need to shoot more images and get more coverage. That will fix any issues you have. The two options I'm gonna show is either export for Postshot or export for Brush. For Postshot, select Call Map and then select the binary format. Move your images into the images folder of the Call Map export and then drag the whole thing into Postshot. Set a resolution that works on your machine, leave everything else as is and start training. For Brush, export Call Map as well. You're gonna pick binary here as well, but export the undistorted images. And we're gonna also select yes for export images. We can select JPEGs. Everything else you can leave as is. For Brush, I'll put a download link in the description. Here you can select directory and you're gonna point it to the Call Map directory we created. Here I'm gonna drop the resolution a bit because Brush is a little bit more unstable than Postshot, and then just hit start. After the training finishes, I'm gonna show you both results. I want you to guess which one is A and which one is B. Were you able to tell which one is which? A is Postshot and B is Brush. If you're able to tell, please leave a comment and let me know how. The only reason I couldn't train the same resolution than in Postshot was that my PC kept crashing. So a big benefit of Postshot is definitely that it is a lot more stable. Also, the training was a lot faster. Brush took around 40 minutes, while the Postshot one took only around 20 to 30 minutes. But aside from that, both results look really good in the end. So if you don't have the money for Postshot, Brush is definitely an option. Brush also has a lot more custom parameters you can tweak and get a lot more quality out of the result you already have. So if you optimize all the parameters, I'm sure you can push the quality even further than it is already. Few things I learned from all of this. First, take enough images. If something doesn't work, then go back and take more images. That will usually fix all of the problems you have. Keep everything consistent. Really pay attention to anything that can create artifacts. People walking around in the scene, you casting a shadow on the object, motion blur, and if you use different cameras, match the white balance and colors as close as you can. And finally, even though I knew how capable this technique is, I was still shocked how easy it is to get an insanely high quality result. Looking into the future, it's just gonna get a lot better. There's gonna be a lot more tools to work with and stuff to improve on the Gaussians, and I can't wait to see what cool and innovative uses people come up with.